me.
Oh my God. I've never seen such a look of shock and terror.
Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast, where we are playing pranks on Amber,
I don't like it.
driving her crazy.
She
with
just
her
died twice.
pineapple yellow New York Yankees cap. Ren, how's your tea today?
It is refreshing, delicious,
Good.
and a
Happy
little
to
bit
hear
of
that.
a lemon
So
essence.
today,
Oh, it's one of those days.
it is one of those days. No, I'm feeling good today. Today I want to talk about something that I used to do a lot when I was building up the PTDC very, very early on, that I stopped doing once I became more comfortable in kind of, call it like, my position in the industry, and that I'm starting to do again. And it's been kind of fun, but it's also been really, really challenging because I'm having to remind myself just how difficult it is to start from scratch in an industry where I'm not known, where I have no clout, and where I haven't put in the work and put in the reps for the last 14 years. You know, in the fitness industry, I've produced so much content. I've gone to so many events. I've spoken at so many things. I've worked with so many different people in so many different ways that it's pretty easy for me to find a connection where somebody can vouch for me. You know, at worst case scenario. But in the community that I'm sort of entering myself in as this book release continues to fast approach come January, I don't know that many people in the, call it like, big market nonfiction authorship realm. And it's also not that big of a world because it's so hard to enter into, and most books sell 100 copies. Like, I've already... The book is not even available for, like, bulk pre-order yet because we haven't, like you could pre-order it on Amazon, but we haven't finished finalizing the manuscript design yet. And I've already pre-sold bulk orders that's more than what most authors sell in their first month. So, like, most books don't sell, right? And so there's not a lot of people in this world that have been doing it for a long time, and I'm trying to enter into it. And so there's some stuff that I used to do when I really started thinking. I was like, all right, well, what did I do, like, early on in the PTDC to kind of build up this network and find the right people to connect with from nothing? And there's kind of three things. The first, and I'll tell you a story of what happened last week. It's going to sum up this stuff. But there's kind of three things. Number one is you gotta fucking force shit to happen for yourself. Like, blunt force. You gotta make it happen for yourself. Because number two is it is up to you to be proactive. I learned the very, very, very hard way that nobody's gonna do it for you. I learned the hard way that even if you do great work, it's still up to you to make sure that other people recognize that work. And I mean, the only way that I got an agent and a publisher is by already self-publishing a number of books and selling them well. They would not have even looked at me, the same quality of work. They would not have even looked at me if I hadn't already had a track record of being able to sell my own books. And I realized the hard way that, like, magazines, investors, partners, whatever, there's just a lot less support than I would have liked there to be over the years. So you got to be proactive in making shit happen for yourself. So that's number two. And then number three is a lesson that I learned from my dad, which is strike the iron when it's hot. The moment that there is a nugget of opportunity or an opening, you jump on it. You jump on it right away. You drop everything you do. You go to just insane, ridiculous lengths, and you jump on it. And so let me tell you a story of what happened last week, which actually happened about 3 months ago. It started about 3 months ago. I had a call with somebody who's become a friend. His name's Charlie Ho, and I think he's one of the best book marketers in the planet. We did an interview with him. If you go back, you can find it. Charlie, his last name is Hoehn, Hoehn. It's worth listening to. Just a brilliant marketing mind, strategy mind, but also just a really good dude. And I was talking to him about how I was approaching the marketing of the book and building the network kind of leading up to it and the day-to-day activities that I'm doing, which I'm still mostly doing, but I was telling them that I was struggling with it. I was struggling with the day-to-day grind of like, all that I have to do is do this for 15 or 30 minutes every single day. And I found that it was draining on me, the stuff that I was trying to do for 15 or 30 minutes every day. And he said, can I offer you a perhaps... can I challenge you on your plan? Of course, you're smarter than I am at this. You have more experience than I do at this. And he said, one person who's the right person that's going to shout off the rooftops about your book is probably going to be worth more to you than 100 mediocre people. Like, there's a power law distribution in the world that we live in, whereby I could get on, for example, 500 podcasts that are like middle of the road podcasts, and it would not have the impact as me getting on one of the top 5 podcasts. There's a massive power law distribution. And the same thing with brands and with quotes on your book and people talking about it, like very much. So he said, it's really, really hard to try to build relationships with 100 people who are like pretty good people. He said it's also really hard to build relationships with 50 or even 10. He says, try 5. He says, try 5. Make a list of the most outlandish, like biggest dream, most perfect matches for your book that you possibly can. And in the next 8 months, your only goal is to basically become friends with those people. Like friends with them, not just like, oh, I'm going to like support your book if you support my book or whatever it is, but like figure out a way to become friends with those people. And that might not happen immediately, of course. And so I started to really think about who, for me, was on this list. And I was like, these aren't necessarily people who have the biggest audiences or the biggest influencers. Instead, they're like, who are my people? Who are my people? Who are the people that for a whole bunch of reasons have some uncommon commonalities where I look at them and I've kind of followed them. I know them based off of what they've shared a little bit more personally. And we seem to really vibe in a lot of the deeper stuff below the surface. For example, like other authors who take the act of writing very seriously, but also run a business and like the authorship thing. Because when you think about nonfiction, there's effectively 3 types of nonfiction authors. There are, call it experiential journalistic nonfiction authors. So these are people like our buddy Michael Easter is a good example of that. Right? He has a topic that he wants to report on. He goes on some insane experience, and then he reports on it through the guise of the story of the experience, and he shows how he's grown, and then he wraps in research. So experiential journalist. Very cool. I can't do that. Like I see people who do this. It's incredible what they do. Okay. So number 1 is experiential journalist. Number 2 are, call it like translators. And so that's Malcolm Gladwell. That's a James Clear. The work that they report on is not their work. It's not their original thoughts. What they do is they take somebody else's research and translate it for the masses. Basically make it more consumable. Super important. Okay. And then the third kind are people who have just like done interesting shit. It might be run businesses. It might have just been like had really interesting life experiences. And then they write books about it. Now, I'm in the third camp. But the thing that I've realized in the third camp is very few people in the third camp write their own books. For the most part, most of them produce books for some reason other than the book itself. They do it for some business goal or ego-driven goal, or they think that their story is just a story that needs to be told. They don't take the act of writing really seriously. So they work with a ghostwriter, or they like Gary Vee, for example, basically shouts his book into a mic, and then somebody else takes it and cleans it up, right, and produces a book. Totally fine that they do this. I want to meet people who have done really interesting shit, who also take the act of writing really, really seriously in that third camp. It's actually a tiny group when you get behind the scenes. So there's one guy who was on my list, and he was kind of at the top of it. He's somebody who I admire for his writing. He's somebody who's been prolific. He's somebody who's a few steps ahead of me. But he writes, his books have a fair amount of humor in them, and I'm purposely not sharing his name, but he writes with a fair bit of humor and personality, which a lot of nonfiction doesn't either. Anyway, so I wanted to really get to know him. So I knew, because he had showed it, that somebody else I'm connected to, that I've been connected for years, is reasonably good friends with him. Like, they've posted like videos of them hanging out together and stuff. And so it's like, you know what? This is really awkward, but I don't have any other way to get a hold of this guy. And I know this other friend well enough to be like, yo, you don't actually have to do this, but if you're willing to make an introduction, like, here's basically why I really want to get to know this guy. Here, let me actually find the message. Ren, take up space for a few minutes if you don't mind. I should have had this up. You're good at this?
Oh, I muted my mic. But I love what you said about forcing it, going to get it, because I think this is something student-wise that we have a problem with. So many of our students want to be a megaphone instead of being what they probably should be, which is a flight attendant, cruise director, et cetera. Like, they just don't make the thing happen, and they get frustrated out of their own lack of willingness to step outside of comfort.
So the first step is, so I found this. Thank you, and so and I agree. It is uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable for everybody. Like, this message that I'm going to read you in a minute was very uncomfortable for me to send. It's uncomfortable for everybody. The first step is to say, well, I don't know, like, there's this person, right, that I put on this pedestal. First of all, like, these people are probably not conventionally famous. You're not looking for a conventionally famous, like, A-list celebrity. You're looking for somebody who in your world is really admired by you. Like, but the type of person who could walk down the street and 99 out of 100 times would not be recognized. Like, that's kind of the industry thought leader celebrity type person. Is who I'm after, at least. And so how do you get to know this person? You probably can't send them an email. Maybe you could. Maybe they'll get it. But even if they do, if they're the type of person who answers their email, what are you possibly going to say to them that's going to, like, get their attention? And so, maybe that could work. But I'm always looking for an introduction. And so in this case, I knew that this person that I had a relationship with knew them. But even if you don't, one strategy that I've done in the past is you kind of work up the chain, right? Like, if you've never done anything, part of your process is going to have to be to do some shit to get to know people who might know other people. Like, you can't start from scratch and go to level 10. And so what I've done in the past is I've looked at what podcasts that person has appeared on. And then I've looked to see if I have any connection with people on those podcasts. Or I've kind of played like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And I've started to actually strategically guest on podcasts that have also had this person on. Or guest on podcasts where this person has been a guest on that person's podcast who has had that person on. Like, trying to kind of work your way backwards to be able to make the connection. Anyway, I sent this friend of mine who had a connection to this guy a message. And I just said, so-and-so was a writer. Hey, question for you. So-and-so was a writer I deeply admire. He's a rare example of somebody who makes it simple and entertaining, yet always has something fresh and useful to say. I'd love to have a blurb from him from the book. He's mentioned, quoted inside even, but I've never met him, and I recall that you and him are close. I don't know. This is awkward. Not sure if there's a good way to ask for an intro, whatever you think is best. When you're ready, a galley copy of the book is coming your way. I'd love to send one to him in the hopes that he'd be willing to contribute a blurb or feature prominently on the cover of the book or whatever it is. And I just basically said to my friend, I'm like, totally feel free to say no, or this isn't a good time, or you don't feel comfortable. Like, I understand 100%. And so I sent this to him on May 3rd, 2020. He responded back almost immediately. He said, I think he gets a lot of requests like this, but let me run it by him and see what he says. I'll keep you posted. I said, absolutely, thank you. He says, sent. Okay. I don't know whether my friend actually sent the message or not. I'm not going to follow up and be like, hey, did you send it? Send me proof that you sent it. Because if he felt awkward sending it, he didn't send it. He just told me that he did. And then he'd be like, yeah, I haven't heard back or whatever it is. Okay. I didn't hear back from him. June 17th, I get a message. Now recall, the original message that I sent to him was on May 3rd. June 17th.
24, right?
Yeah, 24.
Because you said 2020 first. And I was like,
Oh,
shit, it was 4 years? That's amazing.
No. It was like a month and a half.
Okay.
Oh, 2024. June 17th. I wished him a happy Father's Day, and he had missed my previous text. He said he's cool with an introduction to you. Do you still want to meet him? I'm like, oh, hell yes. I'll fly to New York for it. He's there, right? He's in New Jersey. That's fine. Flight into Newark is best from Toronto anyway.
Right.
Okay. So June 17th is, let's go back. June 17th was a Monday. Okay. June 17th was a Monday. So my friend sends an introduction to us. And I responded to it. And then I took a private message with this other guy. Because I was like, hey, you know what? We won't blow up my friend's whatever phone. So I sent a private message to this other guy that said, oh, I should have had all these up. This was bad.
That's all right. Shout out to Newark Airport, by the way. You guys have done a facelift there that is remarkable. I didn't even know what airport I was in when I landed there the last time I went to New York. It was an amazing job. The renovations have really paid off, but you're still overcharging for tea. And pretty much every kiosk that you have there. I don't have New York money. Technically, it's Jersey, but you know what I mean. But I love what you've done with the place. It used to be more like a rat in. It used to be like a rat infested cardboard.
So
I'm sorry.
Monday, June 17th at 10:09 a.m. I sent him a message. Hey, so-and-so, John Goodman here. My friend introduced us. I'm planning on making a trip into New York-New Jersey the end of the week, either Thursday or Friday to see some friends. Are you around either of those days? Maybe for a walk. Okay. I was not planning on being in New York on Thursday and Friday. But think about the difference of saying, hey, I'm going to be close to you for these 2 days. Can you make time either of those 2 days for a walk versus, hey, I'd love to connect on the phone one time and get to know each other? Vastly different, right? Because what you're doing here is you're showcasing skin in the game. Like, I give a shit about you. Why do you think that we tell our online trainer mentorship students when they first join us that when they sign up a new student to send a welcome package FedExed in the mail to their new client? When you could easily email those documents. Skin in the fucking game. I give a shit. I am going out of my way to obviously knowingly do something that is more difficult and more expensive than necessary because that is a sign to you that you are important. I cannot understate that enough. It's not about doing more things. It's about doing a few things better. And so if you work backwards and you say, here are the 5 people I really want to get to know, when you have an opportunity to get to know that person, you better not fucking blow it. Okay, he didn't respond. This is June 17th. He didn't respond. I send a message to him on Wednesday. And my friend did say, he's just like, he's terrible with text messages, basically. I send a message to him on Wednesday at 1:13. Oh, sorry. I send a message to him on Wednesday at 11:48 a.m. Hey, just following up once more to see if you're free either Thursday or Friday for a walk or hangout of some sort. I'm happy to come to you. So I was like, I'm not going to follow up more than once. But I'll follow up once and make sure that he knows that I'm only going to follow up once. He gets back to me at 1:13 p.m. on Wednesday. Hey, sorry for my slow response. Coincidentally, I'm heading into New York on Thursday to see a show. I might have 30 minutes, wife in tow, to meet up. It would be in the Broadway area around 5 or 5:30. Maybe a quick drink together. It will be a last-minute thing if that works for you. Friday is no good for me. Wednesday at 1:15 p.m. I'm in Toronto. This guy says I might have 30 minutes to meet at 5 or 5:30 with my wife around Broadway in New York City. Hey, that'd work well. Not sure when I'm meeting with my agent, but she's in Manhattan, so I'll be close by. 5 o'clock? Okay. By 2 p.m., I booked a flight into New York City at 11 a.m. for the next day. And it reminds me that the rest of what happened. So then what I did is I started to retroactively not lie. There's one of my favorite stories was from Neil Gaiman, the author Neil Gaiman. And he was talking about how he got his start in writing. And he's like, there was this great magazine. He writes very stop and start. He's like, there was this big magazine that I wanted to write for. And so I applied at that magazine. And in my interview, they asked me who else I had written for. And I was new and I hadn't written for anybody. But I told them that I had written for 3 or 4 other big magazines that I knew that they would have heard of. And of course, they didn't check. And I got the job. And I wrote for the magazine. And over the course of my career, I made a point to go and write for those other big magazines. I wasn't lying. I just had the order backwards.
That's a great story. I love that so much.
So I told this person that I was going to be in New York City Thursday or Friday to meet with some friends. And so once I had booked a flight, I messaged a bunch of people to make sure that I was meeting some friends Thursday or Friday so that I wouldn't be lying. I would just have had the order backed up. And what's interesting is, of course, when you say that you're going to be in a place for a very short period of time, people go out of their way to make time for you. Mm-hmm. And so at 2 p.m., I met, and these are people who are important, busy people, friends of mine, but important, busy people. So at 2 p.m., so I hopped on a flight from Toronto to Newark at 11 a.m. I arrived at 12:30. I got in a cab from the Newark airport, took me straight to Brooklyn. I arrived at 2 p.m., met with a friend of mine there for a quick lunch, hopped on the train uptown to Manhattan, went to Bryant Park, met with one guy in Bryant Park at 3:30 or 3:45. I got there. And then my agent met me at 4:30 in that same spot in Bryant Park. She met the other guy. They switched places. I just kept the same tab going at Bryant Park, at the Bryant Park Cafe. And then she walked with me over to the restaurant. It's called Sardi's, which is a famous jazz place, the restaurant on Broadway Street. And said bye to her, and I took one picture the whole trip of just me giving the peace sign at Times Square as we walked by. I didn't even stop. As we walked by, she took a picture of me and walked in, had a great hangout with this guy and his wife from 5:15 to 6, and then walked outside of Sardi's, hailed cab, took me to LaGuardia, and I was home by 11:15 at night. And, what there's so many interesting things about this to me because it's the kind of shit that I used to do back in the day. I used to take an overnight bus to New York City 4, 5, 6 times a summer to meet people. Because if you want to meet people, like what's the line from Hamilton? I want to be in the room where it happens. Like you got to go to the room where it
the
happens.
room where it happens. Yeah,
right. You got to be in the room where it happens. It's a good sound. But if you're there for a very short period of time, it's much easier to book meetings. It's much easier to say somebody like, I'm going to be in your town for 4 hours this day. Can you make time? I mean, people do it to me sometimes, and I go out of my way to make time for them. It's like, yeah, great. Like, I'd love to meet you in person. And I don't know if that would have happened. Like this guy took a month and a half back. Like, I don't know how I would have gotten in touch with him, some other way if he never got back. I would have kept trying, though. For example, there's somebody else who, he's the owner of a massive company, like publicly traded company, multi-billion-dollar company. I don't know what their market cap is now, but probably like not just 1 or 2 billion. Obviously busy. But same type of thing. He's on my list of 5. I don't know who this person is. Let me see, just for reference, what their market cap is. Their market cap is $114 billion. So the CEO and founder of a publicly traded company that has a market cap of $114 billion is on my list. I don't know him. There's not that much that I can offer him in terms of value in business. He's also not an author. But there's something about the way that he operates, and he's Jewish, and so he has this guy, and his business basically is like has 100,000 plus customers who all should read the Obvious Choice book. Like, it's just like everybody in his business should read this book. So I was like, he's on my list, like crazy high up. Okay. So I followed him for a while, commented back and forth, sent him when he did something, like didn't expect any response, but just like, this is really great. Like, just like nice, like, how often do you say to somebody, hey, well done, thanks for your hard work? I mean, and he launched this passion project that it's not something that he's doing to make money, obviously. It's just a passion project that's really, really important to him. And it's a podcast. It's kind of a very, very niche podcast that he's doing with one other guy. And I started listening to it, and I started really vibing with it, and it connected with me on a much deeper point. And so I sent him a message just saying thank you for the podcast, like an email. Like, it's pretty easy to find people's emails. You can figure out, especially in big companies, because you can figure out their email convention. It's like, is it first name dot last initial at company.com? You can figure out the email convention pretty easily. So it's not hard to find somebody's email. Now, whether they answer that email is a different question. Whether they even see their own email is a different question. But it was worth sending them a message just saying thank you and why it's meaningful to me. So I took a few hours composing that message and I sent it to him. And he responded almost immediately, thanking me for it, forwarded it to the other guy. And I kept listening to it, and they made a call on the podcast that they are basically looking for executive producers to help fund this passion project. And I don't think that it's really about the money, because clearly these guys could afford it. I think it's more about just, hey, we want other folks like us to be involved in the project. And it's kind of a how much do you really care? It's a skin in the game. And so I immediately filled out the form. And I mean, this is a form of charity to me, because I won't announce what it is until it happens. But my guess is I'll donate anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 and become an executive producer of this. Anyway, I have a call with him in a week and a half. And it's the same type of thing. It's like there's not that many or any really. Like maybe you can't afford to become an executive producer, but there's usually some sort of an opening if you follow somebody long enough, and you start to get a feel for what's important to them. In addition, no matter how much success somebody has had, like I said, this dude is the founder and CEO of a publicly traded company that is worth $115 billion. And yet, this person still had a moment where they were vulnerable, where they were reaching out for support in some way that is deeply personal to them. So there's always an opportunity. But you will never recognize that opportunity unless you follow somebody deep enough. Which is why you need to really, really say, okay, who's on my list of whatever, 3 to 5, no matter how big that they are. And kind of waiting for an opportunity. And then you do whatever you need to do to force things to happen in that moment. Be absurdly proactive. I filled out their form saying that I wanted to be an executive producer. They didn't get back for 2 weeks. I sent a follow-up. Hey, just wanted to see if you were still interested in this. They got back a few days later to book a call. Probably if I never followed up, they wouldn't have done it. So, like, forcing things to happen when you need to. This is the kind of stuff I think that goes on behind the scenes that you don't recognize, of people that are able to push through. Because if you think about it, the way that I kind of envision the world that I'm entering into a new industry, is there is a lot of people like me that feel like they've done phenomenal work. Do I think my work is better than theirs? Sure. Do they think their work is better than mine? Yes. So we're all trying to push up against this invisible barrier, knowing that, again, it's a power law distribution. There is going to be, in the next decade, 5 or 10 business authors that are going to sell millions of copies of books, and everybody else will be a distant second, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth. Maybe some will sell a few 100,000. Most won't even sell 10 or 20,000. And the difference in those, yes, has something to do with the quality of the work, but less than you probably think. And this is what I really want to bring this back to for you, is that we're all kind of pushing up, if we're new or working our way up in an industry, against this invisible barrier alongside a lot of people that are similar to us that also probably do very good work. And the difference in the way to jump over that invisible barrier is by focusing better, is by adding more value to folks who have already been there in ways that are perhaps more personal to them that others don't. And to be honest, by just making shit happen for yourself. Ben Mudge had a story similar to mine, where he's a fitness guy, and he recognized an opportunity in the Warhammer community. So Warhammer, like tabletop gaming, right? He recognized an opportunity in the Warhammer gaming world where he could be like the fitness coach for Warhammer players. I don't know much about it, but like it's something that he's always done and he's interested in. And so he always watched the YouTube videos of mini Wargamer Dave, who's one of the biggest YouTube Warhammer guys, and sent him a message one day and said, hey, I'm going to be in and around Canada, like Toronto. He lives just outside of Toronto. I'm going to be in and around Toronto, Canada, like in 2 weeks. Would love to come by the studio, shake your hand. Can you make time? Dave said yes. Ben booked a flight. Ben lives in Ireland. He's from Belfast. Ben and Dave now partner on this like fitness trainer thing He got Dave is in some Warhammer inspired movie. Ben got him in shape for that. And now Ben is the de facto coach. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year he's doing. Behind the scenes, you would never notice it. Because he knew this one guy and he made it happen. And he went out of his way to make it happen by getting very, very, very uncomfortable. And the second there was an opening, striking the iron when it's hot, like dropping everything you're doing, and heading out there. I had to write my Friday email. I missed it on Wednesday. I usually write it on Wednesdays. I had to write my Friday email, and I wrote it. I was like, shit, the only time that I have to write this is basically the 30 minutes in the airport before my flight on Thursday morning. So that's what I did. You know, you will be surprised at how much you can accomplish when you put constraints in and challenge yourself, and how quickly you can do it and how well you can do it. Just to get out of, I don't know, call it your daily patterns.
I have a question. So, because I know a lot of overthinkers like me are like, okay, great, I get the opportunity, I do this cool stuff, and I make my way there. Fuck do I say for 30 minutes? Like, what are you actually doing with that time?
Right.
Because that would be my holdup. I could do all the stuff beforehand, but like, okay, now once I'm there, my brain panics.
Well, so here's where, I mean, you like you're not trying to get anything. Like you're not like what you're trying to do in those 30 minutes, I think, is just whatever you're trying to do when you first meet somebody. Like you get to know them, you take an interest in them, you ask them as many questions as possible. And then you try to figure out if they need help or support or whatever in any area. For example, somebody else who was on my list who I met a few weeks ago, different story, has self-published his books and sold hundreds of thousands of copies, did really, really well. One of the really rare experiences where he self-published. And one of the questions that I asked him is like, what's really exciting for you right now? It's one of my favorite questions. What's really exciting for you right now? You know, what do you got going on that you're really excited about? And he mentioned that he was working on the next book. And I asked him about the self-publishing and stuff. And long story short, I was like, I'm going to introduce you to my agent, man. Like, and talk to him about the differences between self-publishing and conventional publishing. And so I was able to add value there. This guy who I met in New York, I don't even remember how we got to talking about it, but he said it. I don't even remember how it came up, but it was the same type of thing. Like I listened to a bunch of podcasts with him beforehand. I've of course read his work and consumed his work because I'm an actual fan of his. Like step number one is you don't actually need to be stressed about this because by definition, this is going to be your people. You should legitimately be an insane fan of theirs. An insane fan of theirs, where you have a lot in common that goes beyond the work that you do. Where it's like, this is somebody who you would probably be like pretty good friends with. Like if you remove the trappings of success, you would probably be friends with. So it's like, they're humans. They walk down the street, they're humans. They look at themselves as humans. You might look at them and say you're infallible. They don't believe that about themselves. So definitely complimentary, but not like putting them on a pedestal. Just like shooting the shit. Do they have kids? Family? They play sports outside of it? Tease them if their sports team competes with your sports team? Like the same type of thing you would do otherwise, I think, Amber. And then I always like to ask what they're really excited about. And I guess over the course of that bit of the conversation, it came up with this guy in New York that he struggles with like short videos. With doing like short videos on, and so this is how it came about. he had an intern or something who worked for him that was basically like, yeah, you shouldn't take a video like facing your phone. You should take it the other way your phone, because the camera on the back of your phone is a better camera, and then you can zoom in and zoom out and do better effects with it. And I just said, I was like, maybe that's true, but like my approach to that is I'm never gonna compete with videography and cinematography. Like I'm never gonna compete on that level. I'm just not interested in doing it. I'm going to compete on the quality of my message and the ability that I have to write. So it's going to be on the script. And so I'm going to optimize for that. And the trade-off is, if I'm optimizing for that, I may trade off for the quality otherwise. So here's the app that I discovered. And so I showed him what I do, where I load a whole bunch of very, very short scripts onto an app. It's just called Teleprompter app. It's like $25 a year. And it allows you to look at your phone and basically do a selfie video while presenting a script, while reading the script on the phone. And that was just like a game changer for him, was me recommending to this guy who I look at and be like, yo, you have everything figured out. Right? Was recommending to him a $25 app. And then, of course, how do you follow up with them afterwards? Because I want the chain to remain open. So I sent him the next day near the end of the day, I didn't do it right away, but the next day near the end of the day, I just sent him a picture of the app so he knows which one it is. He took a picture of it and we were together, but just a picture of the app. And I was like, this is the app that I use for videos. And I told him exactly how I use it. I was like, once every 3 to 4 months, I'll take a few hours and load a whack of short scripts into it. Then I'll flip it on whenever I'm out and about, scroll through, see which script I'm vibing with, and record. Because the script is loaded into the app, there's an option after I record to add the captions. I customized it with my brand colors, and it syncs reasonably well to my voice. It's the first time I've ever felt in control of content creation in a way that feels easy and good and personal and human and not performative. And then I just said, hope you guys had fun at the thing that they were going to, and thanks for the drink, because he paid for the drink. And he didn't respond, and he hasn't responded to that. But like, he saw it, right? And allowed me to open up. So, Amber, to your question, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to just like meet a cool person, and then if I can, figure out a way that I can add value to them in some way. And that might not always be possible. But it's the first time you're meeting somebody. It doesn't need to be a big thing.
Very cool. Thanks. I know all of us overthinkers are like, oh my God, what do I say? What do I do with my hands? What do I...
Yeah, I mean, it's like you meeting somebody. The difference is, if this has been a consistent over the course of my career, where whenever I've done something because I felt like it's like the right move to do or the most optimized or whatever, but that thing is not true to me in any way, I feel awkward as shit doing it. Like whenever I'm like creating content, it's like, this is going to get the most likes. And like, even if it does, I don't feel good about it. And then the second that somebody maybe challenges me on a message, which is fine. You can challenge me on a message. Call me an asshole. I don't care. But if you challenge me on a message that I said, not because it's true to me, not because it's something I truly believe, but because I thought that it would entertain the internet today, I have no armor. That affects me. That cuts me deep. But if it's something that I'm saying or how I'm saying it in a way that's really true to me because I believe it, yo, you can't touch me. And it's the same thing when I'm meeting somebody. If I meet somebody who go out of my way to be like, pay attention to me, look at how cool I am, I have no idea what to say to them. But if it's somebody who it's like, no, like this is somebody who maybe they're ahead of me, maybe they're just on par with me, but in a different industry, whatever it is. But if there's somebody who I've really thought about, it's like, no, like we're going to vibe. Because we have these interests, right? Similar. Like we're going to vibe. Like I know that we're going to vibe. Because I've read your work. I've consumed your stuff. I don't just look at some superficial metric and I'm like, oh, other people on the internet say that they're a big deal. Like, there are certain people who are really well known. I have absolutely zero interest to meet. None. Absolutely none. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, one of them is Lewis House. Like, nothing against him. I'm sure he does great work. For whatever reason, and I have nothing to, I have no specific point to even point to, it doesn't vibe with me. His approach to how he navigates the world doesn't vibe with me. Now, I mean, if I were to meet him in a social setting, I'd shake his hand and I'd say, nice to meet you. Could that person be really powerful in helping me sell a book? Yeah, probably. But I would have no idea what to say to him. None. And so I guess this goes back to, a theme that we keep talking about. Like, the obvious choice is to go deep, not wide, right? It's to think about the problem before you try to jump to solutions. It's to really, really narrow down on, it's better to be the obvious choice to a few than just a pretty good choice to many. And maybe I'm taking my own advice here and forcing myself to be the obvious choice to a few people who I, admire and think that I'll vibe with. I think it's a much better approach. I think it's a way better approach.
That's a great story, John. I knew pieces of it, but when you strung it all together like that in coherent sentences and not snapshots and two or three sentences at a time, it's a really great story. It's important for people who are listening to understand first how finite how finite life is, love too, probably.
Probably.
But I mean, your time's just sort of ticking out.
Yeah.
Do stuff.
Do something.
Like the extent to which people deliberate befuddles me on a daily basis. Like, dude, just do stuff. Do stuff. You put yourself. You said something earlier. I hit my mic. Sorry, listeners. You said something earlier. It's easier. It's easier when you're there, or something to that effect. That's what I think that's a.
What was it
There
about?
was more language in what you said. There was an entire sentence. But what I took from the sentence that you said
It wasn't a sentence fragment.
yeah, it was a real sentence.
Yeah.
But that's what I took from the sentence. That's a good life motto. It's easier when you're there. Whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Well, it's easier when you're there,
Whatever
and
it
the more constraints you put on something, counterintuitively, the easier that thing becomes to accomplish. By saying I'm only going to be there for whatever 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Saying to somebody like the messages I sent were literally like, "Yo, super last minute. I'm going to be in New York tomorrow from whatever 2 to 5. Can you make time to hang out for a little bit?" When you give that sense of, call it urgency,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the opportunity. Totally fine if you can't make it work, like if you got something booked, but most of the things that we think that we do over the course of the day really aren't that important and can easily be pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of takes somebody to say, like, no, this is the only chance we have to talk. This is the only chance we have to hang out. Somebody to say that, to be like, okay, yeah, like I'll push that work back. I'll push that whatever thing back. Versus, hey, I'd love to catch up. Can we get something on the calendar when you're free? You're like, I'm never free. Because getting something on the calendar means I'm not doing my work and or my fitness and or my family. So getting something on the calendar is not going to happen unless I feel like it's going to be really valuable for me. Versus,
Urgent.
I'm there for 3 hours. Yeah, the
Right.
constraints. Well, and it was always really, it was also really easy for me, like just to be able to send that specific message of just like, yo, I'm here this time. Um, and I'm doing that with, I'm going to be organizing. I mean, Amber knows more about this than I do, but I'm going to be organizing like author parties. Basically, just like, I don't know how often I'll do it, once a month, once every few months. I'm trying to get 10 or 15 authors together, same type of thing. I just want to hang out with people like me. And I have a feeling that other people like me probably want to get to know other people like them too, because over the course of my day, I don't know a single other author in my everyday, day to day life around me. I don't. I went to watch the hockey game with 3 guys the other night. All of them were in software. Like, cool, awesome. I'll talk to you about your software. But like, I want to know people like me. So it's the same type of thing. I'm just going to send him a message and be like, this time at this hour, 10 or 15 of us are just getting together to share with each other what we do and what we're good at and what we want to help with. Love to have you. Is this hour. If you can't make it, I'll let you know the next one. If you're not interested, I won't send you the next one. And I'll probably book a trip or retreat or something at one point too, and invite people to come. Same type of thing, and it's going to be like this date to this date. We do that. I don't know. The thing that there's very few things that annoy me as much as the back and forth of like, oh, do you want to whatever go see the show or like go to this thing, and somebody's like, oh, let me check my calendar. Oh yeah, maybe. Oh, that sounds good. It's like, no, do you fucking want to do it or not want to do it? Like yes or no, right? And so that pisses me off to no end. And so because what Allison and I have tried to do
Oh
and do
man.
once a year is we rent a cottage for friends. So we'll rent a big cottage for a weekend in the summer, and we'll invite 3 or 4 other families with kids to come up. And the first time that it happened, it was so frustrating because Allison was trying to figure out the best weekend for everybody, and nobody was committed. Nobody was committing. And I just said to her at one point, I'm like, just book a fucking cottage. Just book a cottage. And say to people, we have booked a cottage for this weekend. It has 3 rooms for 3 families. Let me know in the next 2 days whether you would like one of those rooms. Within 2 hours, the thing is booked. We do that because we want to hang out with friends a lot more than we do, right? It's the same type of thing to be proactive. We have a rule now that we started instituting this year, Allison and I, which I call buy 2 extra tickets. So anytime Allison and I decide to see a show or a concert, or we bought a year pass to the theater, we bought like a Movish pass to the theater. So it's like Lion King, it's like all these shows. Or like we're going to see Green Day in a couple months.
Awesome.
Whenever we go to anything now, we just buy 4 tickets. And then we just figure out afterwards to invite people. Because it's the same type of thing. It's like, hey, I'm going to see Green Day this night at this time. I have 2 extra tickets. Can you come? Versus, hey, Green Day's playing a few shows, but so is Blink 182, so is whatever. Yeah, what do you want? Can you make it? Nah, fuck that shit. Fuck that noise. That sucks. Like, be proactive. If you want to do something, just do it and like set a time, set a date, make it a yes or no, and do the thing. I don't know.
Urgency
Anything else
is
you want to talk
important.
about?
For students
I
out
hate
there
that
that
back and
listen
forth.
to this, for students out there that listen to this, I'm talking about OTA, Online Trainer Academy students, level 1, OTM, whatever you are. Remember that urgency gives indecisive people permission to be decisive. Don't act out of the space of urgency when you're dealing with potential clients, sales. If you're DMing, like have a mindset of making it happen because it's important and it's important now, and you'll get a lot less deliberation in your enrollment exchanges with
Yeah.
potential clients. Be urgent.
Oh
Be
yeah.
urgent in
Well, it's
life. It's a
asking the
good
right
thing.
question too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the question that you're asking when you're asking, do you want to do this at this time, is very different than do you want to do this thing in general, because now they have all of these different things to consider. So do them a
100%.
favor by eliminating all of
Yes.
the things that they have to think about. So make sure that you're asking the right question to begin with.
And it
100%.
allows you to also send a shit or get off the pot message.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like saying to him originally in that first message that I'm meeting with friends Thursday and Friday, or Friday in New York and New Jersey, allowed me to remind you, I sent that message originally on Monday and I didn't hear back. It allowed me to send a message on Wednesday saying, hey, once more, Thursday or Friday, can you meet? OTM students are often surprised at how well their first launch goes compared to just selling coaching ongoing. And part of the reason for that is exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, doing a launch in fitness, online fitness, like, it's kind of benign bullshit. There's no real reason why you're starting a group. Now, there may be an operational reason. For example, like, we let a new cohort into the online trainer mentorship every month.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll accept people all throughout the month. But a new cohort starts the first Monday of every month. And the reason for that is operationally that allows us to build a scalable coaching model. That allows us to align our coaches, that allows us to align our calls, that allows us to align our support. If we accepted people all throughout, it would be much more difficult. So operationally, it does make a big difference when you're really trying to scale something. But what it also does for us is it allows us to build marketability into it. It allows us to say, we start July 2nd. Are you in or not in? If you're not in, we'd love to see you later, but you got to wait at least a month. And so every single month designed into our system is a launch. That's one of the reasons why the model that we built with OTM for our business, but also the model that we teach our students, is really, really effective. It allows you to scale your coaching service by productizing it that way. But it also allows you to better build out your marketing and having those last chance kind of messages. Because what you'll find is that if you're having conversations with somebody who may be interested or tangentially interested or not even shown interest in your coaching program, but you think that they might be right for it, if you send them a message, it's kind of like, why now? Often, there's not that urgency to get them going. And so conversions can be really, really low. Not because of anything you did or anything you said. That same person then, if you were to say, let's say that you're starting July 2nd with like your new group, you can start conversations with them whenever you want. But you can have a list of people that are like your green light or yellow light leads. And you can follow up with them a week before July 2nd and be like, hey, I got 10 spots for this next group starting on July 2nd. Are you interested? And a few will respond, but most won't yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is July 1st, you send a message to the people and just like, hey, totally fine if you're not able to do it right now, but wanted to send one more message because we're starting tomorrow. There's whatever 6 more spots. Last chance, kind of, to get into this new group. Do you want in? And all of a sudden it's like boom, because now they're gonna lose something if they don't act right away. They're gonna lose something if they don't act right away. Okay, I'm gonna recommend another episode. And then get lunch. What are you guys having for lunch?
I don't know,
I had
John.
pasta.
That's a good question.
Pasta?
I think spaghetti for me too. I made pasta yesterday, so
Cool.
leftovers.
Good to know. Okay.
It's
So
important.
I mentioned him in this podcast. So I'll recommend the interview with Charlie Hone. Episode 226. Charlie's just brilliant. He's one of my favorite people. We've started to talk reasonably often. Great family man. He was the secret marketing guy behind the scenes for Tim Ferriss, for Ramit Sethi. He had a lot to do with a lot of the marketing of David Goggins' book as well. Yeah, he was like the director of secret projects or something for Tim Ferriss. So he was behind a couple of his big book launches in the 4-hour series. So just brilliant. And really kind of soft spoken and humble, but it's got a great strategic mind. So the episode title is "Creating Something People Can't Get Enough of." Basically, creating phenomenal products. We talk a lot about books, but of course, anything with books is just like any product. So check that out, episode 226. I think you'll really enjoy it with Charlie Hohen. Have a listen to that next, and hope you're good. Appreciate you listening.